What happens when you combine working class origins, raw intelligence, educational opportunity, and a zeal for social justice? You get Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's what happens. AOC is redefining what a congressional representative should be. Somebody who gives voice to the desires of the working and middle class for a government that will protect their interests and their safety, that will provide an equal playing field, and that will share our resources fairly and equitably. No wonder conservatives hate her. She's all about dismantling privilege and inequity. And to do that, she knows that the integrity of the Supreme Court must be restored. No small task with this conservative majority. And so, in typical AOC fashion, rather than wait for the slow wheels of Merrick Garland's donkey cart, or for party leadership to sit and fret about how the party will be perceived if it upholds the law and goes after corrupt justices, she took to the floor today and dropped a bombshell. Now, usually I would give a little background here so that you can possess the proper context, but AOC's actions are so bold and so clear-cut that it's not necessary for background. So instead, I'm going to recount a significant part of my life story. Ha! Caught you there, didn't I? No, seriously. Today, AOC took the kind of bold leadership that she is known for and introduced articles of impeachment against two justices of the Supreme Court. Let's watch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce articles of impeachment against Associate Justices of the Supreme Court Clarence Thomas and Samuel Anthony Alito, Jr. Against Justice Thomas, the resolution includes 3 total articles: 1 count of failure to disclose financial income, gifts, reimbursements, property interest liabilities, and transactions, among other information, and 2 counts of refusal to recuse from matters concerning his spouse's legal and financial interests before the court. The second resolution includes the following impeachment articles against Justice Alito: 1 count of refusal to recuse from cases in which he had a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party before the court, and 1 count of failure to disclose financial incomes, gifts, reimbursements, property interests, among other information.
This is AOC at her finest. No need for theatrics, no recourse to platitudes and grand pronouncements. She levels the filing and declares the charges. Done. You don't get more professional than that. You just don't. Having laid out the charges, she goes on to deliver the proofs. Let's watch her lay out the case against Thomas for his financial relationship to Harlan Crow.
The proof is undeniable, and here I will lay it out. Justice Clarence Thomas, for decades now, has carried on a close, financially entangled personal relationship with real estate billionaire Harlan Crow. It is of material importance to the American people to note that Justice Thomas's relationship to the billionaire only began after Thomas's powerful appointment to our nation's highest court. The cash, goods, and services Justice Thomas received over the years include large loan balance cancellations, tuition payments for family, and vacations in private jets and yachts worth up to $500,000 alone. In total, Justice Thomas appears to have received more than $1.5 million worth in goods, cash equivalents, and services from Mr. Crow. And that is just what we know of. But truthfully, we won't ever really know the total sum of contributions Thomas received from Crow. Justice Thomas not only accepted these contributions while Mr. Crow had business in front of the court, but he accepted them in secret, failing for years and years to report them. Yet Thomas did report smaller gifts during this time, demonstrating a clear understanding of his legal obligation to report. Would a reasonable American question that receiving lavish gifts from Mr. Crow might lead Justice Thomas to have a bias towards his, quote, friend with business before the court? Without a doubt, yes.
After the financial charges, AOC goes after Thomas for his bias, conflict of interest, and lack of recusal. Let's watch.
Justice Thomas, who is married to Virginia Thomas, a financially and personally involved operative in the Stop the Steal movement and Capitol attack, also joined opinions in these cases, even as clear evidence mounted that not only was his wife fully committed to overthrowing the results of a fair election, but she was actively lobbying members of the Trump administration attempting to do just that. The questions before the court had unquestionable implications for Thomas's wife and consequently Thomas himself, making his refusal to recuse one of the most shocking examples of conflict of interest in the court's history. And crucially, it was both Justices Thomas and Alito who cast critical votes in the ruling.
Just as searing as her laying out the case against Thomas is her devastating case against Alito.
Now take Justice Samuel Alito, who has no shortage of billionaire associates of his own. After billionaire Paul Singer gave Justice Alito a luxury fishing trip on a private jet, a contribution that was also hidden from the public and the court, Justice Alito not only refused to recuse, but changed his mind regarding his gracious host's case. Just a short time after accepting the lavish undisclosed trip from Singer, Alito joined the court in reversing its previous position and took up Singer's case. He did not recuse. Justice Alito also refused to recuse in the case itself, ultimately leading to a ruling that netted Singer $2.4 billion. In January 2021, after the former President of the United States incited an insurrection on the Capitol in this chamber to interfere with the results of the U.S. election, Justice Samuel Alito and his wife flew an upside-down American flag, a symbol of solidarity with the attack, outside their home. 2 years later, they publicly displayed outside their home yet another incendiary symbol, a flag associated with extreme right-wing Christian nationalism. Justice Alito maintains that his wife, Martha Ann Alito, is the only one responsible for the flags. But common sense maintains that such a close and incendiary revelation requires recusal by the justice from January 6 related cases. Despite the overwhelming appearance of a conflict of interest, Justice Alito refused to recuse himself from cases surrounding the 2020 election and questions of the former president's legal immunity in the attack. Would a reasonable person question that Justice Alito's conduct exhibits and demonstrates reasonable concern for bias in these cases? Absolutely, and without question.
And now, after laying out the evidence against each of these justices, AOC goes on to describe the effects of having these two justices serving on the court. Let's watch.
The abuses of power committed by Justice Thomas and Justice Alito are precisely the types of corruption that the framers understood was an existential threat to our democracy. Instances like these and misconduct like that of Alito's and Thomas's are precisely why the framers gave us the tool of impeachment. Corruption without consequence infects all it touches. And that is why this body, Congress, has a constitutional and moral obligation to hold these justices accountable, to maintain the integrity of our courts, and to uphold the standards of the judiciary and our institutions.
And to close up her discussion of introducing these articles of impeachment, AOC delivers these striking conclusions.
It now follows that because of Alito's and Thomas's refusals to recuse, everyday Americans cannot, should not, and will not believe that these justices, and consequently the court they serve, is working to uphold the Constitution and put the country ahead of their own individual self-interests. Americans will not believe that the court interpreted the law independent of profit for themselves and their newly termed friends. Without action against these blatant violations, reasonable Americans have and will continue to lose faith in the court itself. Mr. Speaker, I am here today presenting these articles of impeachment not because I am a Democrat and not because I am blind to its odds in a Republican-led chamber. I present them because it is the right thing to do. And while our framers perhaps may not have envisioned someone like me in this seat, they absolutely did envision the necessity and value of the impeachment action upon which I seek to advance today.
She is one of the youngest members of Congress, and maybe that's why AOC doesn't play that game. She doesn't have the votes for impeachment, and she knows it. But she also knows that if the Democrats want to lead this country, they must always stand up for what is right, even if they are going to lose. If you want to know how the Republican Party captured the heartland, this is one of the ways they did, by going to bat for the values of their constituents, even though they knew they would lose. AOC takes that page from their playbook, but instead of the histrionics, false statements, innuendo, and dog whistles, AOC lays out the case with honest facts that we all know, that everyone knows, including the IRS and the DOJ, who both cower in the corner, afraid to do anything, lest the media call them out for being weaponized. AOC kicks that to the curb, to stand up and do the right thing, to bring these charges of serious misconduct that has resulted in serious injustice, to begin the process of bringing to light all of the malignant corruption that has infected the court and eroded our democracy. And all this from the little Hispanic girl from the Bronx who grew up to be a congresswoman and shook the halls of justice. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.